This week on Vegas Weekly, we'll answer another question from our Facebook group about a great value downtown property. We'll have more COVID-related news from Las Vegas. I'll feature yet another one of my favorite hotels on the Las Vegas Strip. And of course, we'll have a Vegas tip or trick to wrap things up. All coming up next on Vegas Weekly. Hey, welcome back to Vegas Weekly for Saturday, August the 7th, 2021. Before we get started, I do want to let you know we will not have a regularly scheduled broadcast next Saturday. So for those of you who plan your breakfast or brunch around the show, well, I'm sorry. I'm fortunate enough to be asked to be part of a big event that I'll talk more about a little bit later in the show. And so if you want to watch Vegas Weekly or whatever passes for it, I'll be part of that. And again, I'll clue you in on exactly what's going on there just a little bit later in the show. So I wanted to kick it off with what I thought was a really good question just earlier today in our Facebook group. I want to give credit to Sean Gross for asking this question. I will paraphrase Sean. He wants to spend one night on Fremont Street on his next trip. Most recently, when he stayed downtown, he had stayed at the Golden Nugget and did not find it to be a pleasing place. So he was wondering what some other good sort of budget but not bad properties. He described the Golden Nugget as feeling like a Motel 6. Now, it turned out he stayed at the Carson Tower at the Golden Nugget, which, from everything I've heard lately, is not looking so great. So there are a couple other towers at Golden Nugget, and we'll touch on those briefly, but let's jump in and try to answer Sean's question as easily as we can. Compared to, say, a decade ago, there are a lot more decent to good hotel rooms in downtown Las Vegas. With the exception of 2 or 3 properties, most any hotel is going to provide decent, clean, comfortable accommodations. The rooms tend to be smaller, but they're nice. I'm going to highlight very quickly, or try, 6 properties that I think provide a good option. And some of that's based upon the answers that he already received in the Facebook group earlier today. Today being Friday as I record this. Downtown Grand was suggested, and I don't think that's a bad choice. I will say I stayed there a couple of summers ago, and while I liked the property, I liked the casino, it can be a little quiet, but I kind of like that as well. The room looked nice. It felt kind of cheap to me. So I know they have recently opened up a new hotel tower just this past year. I think it's called the Gallery Tower. So if you decide to stay at Downtown Grand, and there's some good reasons to do it, it's very close to Fremont Street, but you're not right in the middle of the canopy, so you can kind of escape the noise. And the nice thing about the new tower there is it actually kind of faces away from 3rd Street, which is where the Hogs and Heifers bar is, and it can get noisy around there as well. So something to consider. Again, it's not right on Fremont Street if that's important. Another property not right on Fremont Street, but in a very interesting part of downtown, is El Cortez. There was a suggestion there to try the remodeled tower rooms, and I think that's a really good suggestion. It will typically run you a few more dollars than the basic tower rooms, but the basic tower rooms, while adequate, are very old and tired. They feel like 20 years ago. So I don't think it's the look you're going for. The new ones look really nice. Now, you're a couple of blocks away from the main Fremont Street experience, at least the canopy, in an area that's become known as the Fremont East District. There's a lot of cool little bars and restaurants around there, but it's a very different experience than what you have on Fremont Street. So if you decide to stay at El Cortez, I would focus your attention at checking out some of those places and not so much spending time in the sort of carnival atmosphere of Fremont Street. On the other hand, you have a number of what I think are decent options on under the canopy. We'll start out with the D, which was also mentioned. Definitely a party place, very loud, dancing girls, and they've done a beautiful job remodeling the second level of that property. And it's, like I said, it's a fun place. It does get loud, and any place you are on Fremont Street is potentially loud. So if you're planning to sleep, you might try to get a room facing away from the canopy. But the D's a good property. The rooms there haven't been remodeled in a while, but everything I've seen of late, they still look to be in very good condition. So that's an option. I would definitely skip the Fremont, the Four Queens, and the Apache Hotel. In the case of the first two, the rooms are getting very tired and are going to look like the motel you stayed in Schenectady a couple of weeks ago. So I wouldn't choose those. I wouldn't choose Apache, even though the rooms look kind of cool, have kind of a fun retro feel. There's no windows. It's like sleeping in someone's basement, and it's kind of creepy. So I'd skip that one. If you do decide to go back to Golden Nugget, and I probably wouldn't, just because you didn't have a good experience there, the Gold Tower and the Rush Tower are the towers to stay in, and they will run you more money. And generally, I think Golden Nugget is one of the more overpriced properties anywhere in Las Vegas compared to what you get. So I'd skip it, but if you do decide to go back, don't go to the Carson Tower. Circa would be a great choice, and you might look because surprisingly enough, there's some decent room rates, particularly midweek. And it's definitely the place to be. But if you want to be on that end of the Strip or that end of Fremont Street, there's a couple of good options right next door. One is at the Golden Gate across the street, the oldest hotel on Fremont Street. It kind of looks it at times, but they've done a good job of remodeling and updating it. If you stay there, you want one of their suites. The basic sort of entry-level rooms are like sleeping in a matchbox in your grandmother's basement. Okay, maybe not their basement, maybe just like the second floor. But, and they can be very loud and they're very tiny. So I don't recommend that. But the suites, which are not really suites, they're just a good sized room, are really comfortable, really like them. And they tend to be set towards the back of the property, so it's not quite so noisy. By the way, if you stay at either the D or the Golden Gate, you'll get 2 passes to check out Stadium Swim over at Circa, which is one of the coolest elements of that property. And you can't just get in there for free. So as a guest of either property, you'll have that option. Finally, a choice that I might make, honestly, if it was me, I just stayed at this hotel, but I didn't stay at the room that I'm going to recommend, and that is the Plaza. Now, the Plaza is an older property. It definitely has a downtown feel. But they've done a lot of things to it and improved it a lot in the last 10 years or so. If you stay there, you want one of the luxe rooms. And in my opinion, probably the best sort of value room you can get in Las Vegas. They're really nicely done. They like redid the hallways and everything. You would not believe if you'd stayed at the Plaza 20 years ago that it was the same place. So that would be my choice, but any of the things that I mentioned, the key with any of these properties is to make sure that you are picking the correct room type, because simply choosing the entry-level room, which is probably what you did at Golden Nugget, is an opportunity in some cases to end up with a less than desirable option. Hope that answered your question, Sean. If you're in our Facebook group, I hope that you'll subscribe to our channel here today. And if you have a question that you'd like answered on the program, feel free to ask it in the Facebook group and it may be selected. There you go. Back with news. Okay, we're back. Do I look any different? I comb my hair. I thought you'd like that. Okay, so before we get into the Vegas news, which is basically just one topic that I'm going to cover pretty quickly, we have some Vegas-related news. As those of you that watched last week's show know, a good friend of the channel, Andy Goodspeed, is suffering with some health-related issues. And wanted to let you know about a couple opportunities that you have to help his family out in a difficult time. First off, I was going to do this last week, but then I didn't. I'm going to post a link to Cinnamon Girl's store, which with Andy's approval is selling a blank cancer Good Times production shirt. With all the proceeds going to Andy, I think already it's several $100s. So if you're interested in buying a shirt, we'll get you the link to that. Harkening back to what I said right at the start of the program, there won't be a Vegas Weekly at the normal time next week. I will be part of a fundraising kind of telethon that involves literally probably 24 YouTube channels, from, you know, just strictly Vegas channels to travel channels to slot channels. A whole bunch of people are going to be participating, and I was humbled to be asked to be one of those folks. My time slot's going to be 10 p.m. my time, but at 8 p.m. Vegas time on next Saturday, the 14th. So we'll probably do some variation on the Vegas Weekly show, but probably a little more loose and free, and it'll probably just turn into one of those live streams. But we'll have a link to a place where you can donate, and all the funds will go to Andy and Simone. So definitely continue to keep that couple in your thoughts this coming up week, and I hope that you'll join us on this fundraiser. I'll put up a thumbnail of some sort during the week. We're all kind of using the same thumbnail. And I will also put a link to the sort of itineraries, like who's going to be appearing when. But it should be a great weekend to just kind of chill out and enjoy some fun YouTube stuff, because, I mean, basketball season's over, hockey's over, baseball, it's too hot to play baseball. Football, there's no real games yet. So it's a great weekend to kind of chill out for the end of summer, have a cold beverage, and, you know, if you are so inclined and can afford to do so, chip in a few dollars for Andy and Simone. Okay, so the Vegas news this week is not good. We continue to be trapped in this second, third, fourth, eighth, 12th COVID wave. And Las Vegas, like many communities, including my own, is now in sort of a high-risk zone and has been for a while. I know I'm back wearing a mask at work, and increasingly finding that the majority of people anywhere are masked up. So, and that's been the case in Las Vegas now for a few weeks. The casinos have been once again requiring masks. I don't want to even get into the politics of this, because we've had enough of that in our Facebook group as well. But in addition, we're now getting a couple of additional measures which could, at some point anyway, impact visitors, so I thought I would cover it briefly. Number one, there is a possibility, it's being encouraged, and it may be required at some point, that you will essentially have to show some proof that you have been vaccinated in order to attend certain shows or events or conventions, etc. Some people would call this a so-called COVID passport. It's been proposed in other parts of the country, and the governor of Nevada seems to think that this is something that could potentially have a positive effect on conditions on the ground there in Las Vegas. So for the moment, he's simply encouraging venues to follow this policy, but that encouragement is coupled with what sounds like a threat of mandating such a policy. So keep that in mind if, like myself, you're heading to Vegas sometime soon. I have no idea how you'll handle the logistics of something like this. You know, there's no sort of central registration point where we know everybody who has and hasn't been vaccinated. And those little cards they give out, how easy would it be to counterfeit those things? And I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just saying it is going to be a very difficult process to implement something like that. But we will see what happens. And at least we didn't see any immediate threats of any kind of shutdown or lockdown. And I don't think we will. I don't think there's any point in speculating about it, because A, we simply have no control over it, and B, we don't know. We don't know. I doubt that's going to happen. So anyway, not the best of news from Las Vegas. I'm still planning to be there in 4 weeks and bringing you all along. But that's going to wrap up the news segment today. Be back with a favorite hotel of mine. Stay tuned. Okay, back in time for our weekly segment, for now at least, where I highlight a Las Vegas Strip hotel that I think is a really good deal, and maybe one that you overlook. We talked about the Wynn a few weeks back. We also featured Planet Hollywood. This week we're going to go way to the south end of the Strip. So keep in mind, if you stay at this property, you better like the south end of the Strip or like driving or taking cabs. It could be a fun place to stay, at least for a few days. A property I'm going to recommend is the Delano. or people call it Delano. I am fairly certain is Delano, just like the middle name of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, for those of you old enough to know who that is. The Delano began life as the hotel, which had such intuits, had this sort of black and white theme, and everything was the. I'm assured that the toilet paper was listed as being the TP. Well, I don't know, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now, they remodeled the property. It is now the Delano. There are other Delano hotels. I'm not sure exactly how the hotel sort of back of the house sort of operations are run, how much of that is in cooperation with Mandalay Bay and how much of it is another company, but the Delano is basically part of Mandalay Bay. It's down a hallway, which includes access to the MJ1 show, just right next to the sports book. I would say it's probably not much more of a hike from your room at the Delano Tower than it is from your room at Mandalay Bay or Four Seasons in the other tower. The Delano rooms are all suites, and I don't mean they call themselves suites. There's actually separate rooms. There's a living area, and then a sleeping area, and then also a large bathroom. They're over 700 square feet. They typically don't run that much more than the rooms at Mandalay Bay. And while the rooms at Mandalay Bay are very nice, the rooms at Delano trump them, I do believe. Now, you do have to kind of like white because they seem very white. But it's a really nice property. You know, I've stayed there twice, did room tours. I know our friend Ace of Vegas stayed there recently and was also a big fan, also did a recent room tour there. There's not a casino on site, but obviously you have access to the casino at Mandalay Bay. You actually have access to all of the amenities at Mandalay Bay, including the pool. But Delano comes with its own separate pool area. Normally there's a spa and a restaurant. I don't know how much of that stuff is open right now. Much of it has not reopened. The other big attraction at Delano is the Skyfall Lounge, which features one of the most impressive views of Las Vegas, at least from the south looking north. So that's on property, so an opportunity to check that out if you stay there. But again, just a really nice, spacious, comfortable room. Again, you'll have kind of like the south end of the Strip. It would be a great location if you were attending an event at Allegiant Stadium. You could easily walk over there. I did it in February in no time. So it's a good location for that. And it's a good location. I think it'd be a good location if you were driving. The main registration area at Delano is very close to the parking garage. And if you got lucky, you could be parked, you know, a couple of 100 feet from registration, which would be pretty nice. So Delano is my choice as a really kind of unknown or underutilized Vegas property, particularly for those of you who enjoy the South Strip. Next, back with this week's Vegas tip. Okay, this week's Vegas tip or trick continues our theme of talking about comps, and I think we're going to wrap up the comp segment on the next show. I don't know if we'll do it on the Saturday Live or later. A lot of people don't realize, they think the only way that they're going to get any kind of freebies from the casino is to gamble a lot. And that's certainly the most common way that you'll get either free rooms or other sorts of perks from any property. But increasingly, various hotels have recognized that people that spend on other things at the property are also valuable to them. And so in many cases, if you eat at a restaurant on site or make a purchase at the gift shop or perhaps run up a bill at a club, you should ask at least if you can get credit for that by presenting your Players Club card. Most of the casinos nowadays do offer some variation on this. So even if you're not a big-time gambler, if you're one who spends a fair amount of money, you may still get some excellent room offers because they want you to come back and spend money. In the end, the casino doesn't care where the money comes from. They just care that you're spending it. So keep that in mind. Anytime you purchase something on site, on a property, or even at an affiliated property. So if you're staying at Caesar's Palace and you get to have a meal at Bally's, again, make sure that you're presenting your Caesar's Reward card or your M-Life card or whatever card is appropriate to that property, because that hotel spend can really start to add up. You can, increase your tier levels in some cases, And like I said, in some cases you can get free room offers and stuff. So, and I think you're going to see more of this going forward. So it's definitely something to check out and a great way to earn money from the casino when you're just doing what you were going to do anyway, which was have dinner. So, okay, we're going to wrap it up today. A reasonably tight show. I think we got it in under 20 minutes this week. So I hope there was some good information for you. Again, join me next week, 10 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Vegas time, for my little part of the Andy and Simone fundraiser. We'll see you this Wednesday with some kind of a Wednesday show. Until then, I hope you have a great, lucky, and healthy week. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.